Hey all, and welcome to the channel. This is a guide to all bosses in the patch 7.35 Deep Dungeon, Pilgrim's Traverse. First off, if you're concerned that it's too difficult, I can assure you that I cleared it using the Deep Dungeon queue just fine. I've done Palace of the Dead and Eureka Orthos, and compared to those two, this one feels the most straightforward. Feel free to check the description for timestamps and find what you need, so let's get right into it. The boss of floor 10 is this Rainbow Bush, Leaf Man. It has two main mechanics. First, it will begin a long AoE cast called Hedge Mazing, while these spiral animations play out. At the end of the long cast, these spirals will spread to the edge of the arena and spawn small rainbow bushes with AoEs that will knock you up into the air if you get hit by it. Ensure that you don't get hit by more than one of these. The boss will then cast Leaf Mash, and you will see these looping arrow indicators on your screen. The boss will jump following these arrows and do a point blank AoE from 1st to 2nd to 3rd and to the 4th position as indicated by these arrows. Simply stand in the 3rd or 4th spot and dodge into the 1st spot. If you're quick, you can also stand just slightly off the middle, away from the 1st arrow, and then move into that AoE. The boss of floor 20 is a Scene Eater named Forgiven Emulation. It has two mechanics. It will first leap into the air and cast Touchdown, a knockback AoE. At the same time, its 4 feet will light up with red glow, one after another. This is the indicator for AoEs that the boss will do after Touchdown. Simply get knocked into the 3rd or 4th and dodge into the space after the 1st foot AoE goes off. Or if you're lazy, you can just stand still and eat one AoE. It won't kill you. The second mechanic is Bare Root Planting. A marker will show up above one player's head, and when it finishes casting, a crisscrossing fine pattern will spread from where it's dropped. Make sure to put this fine spreading thing as close to the edge of the arena as possible so that there's more space to dodge. Once the spreading fine spawns, a few random AoEs will hit the arena, followed by AoEs baited by the players. If the spreading fine pattern is placed too close to the middle, combined with the players all choosing the same safe triangle spot, it's possible that you might run out of space to dodge. But if you want to troll your friends, feel free to drop the spreading vine right in the middle of the arena, which will make it difficult for players to dodge the baited AoEs. The boss of floor 30 is a Scene Eater named Forgiven Treachery. This boss will do a few things that are persistent throughout most of the fight. First, it will do many ring AoEs that drop from the sky. An outer ring AoE, a middle ring, and an inner ring. Dodge these accordingly by using the extending platforms on the outside and inside of the main ring. The boss will also spawn reddish-orange spinning AoEs that will slowly move around the arena. These two mechanics will be persistent through much of the fight. Okay, so at the start of the fight, the boss will cast Cripple Salvation. This attack will cleave half the room when the cast finishes, and that same arm will get pumped up with a light purple glow. This glowing arm will swing forward in a roughly 240-degree swipe. Dodge the half room cleave first and position yourself behind the glowing arm to dodge the follow-up swipe. The second cast is Divine Favor. The boss will target one player with a chasing AoE. If you get targeted, simply run around the ring. Other players simply need to avoid this player's path. These mechanics will then repeat. Remember, Grip of Salvation, the half room cleave then swipe, will happen at the same time as the descending rings and the spinning orange AoEs moving all over the arena. Okay, on to floor 40. Its name is Forgiven Naivety. So this boss will spawn 2 ads at the start, and these 2 ads will move to form a triangle formation with the boss. The boss will then cast Blown Blessing, and the spouting water animation will show up one by one on the boss and the 2 ads. Make sure you remember the order that water animation shows up. The water animation can also be either colored blue or yellow. Blue water spouts will knock the player back, so simply get knocked by the first blue spout to the second, then from the second spout to the third. The yellow spout is instead a large AoE. To dodge this, simply stand at the third yellow spout and move towards the first yellow spout position after the first one goes off. Afterwards, the boss will cast either near tide, a point blank AoE, or far tide, a donut AoE. As a heads up, the point blank AoE is significantly larger than the boss hitbox, so dodge accordingly. Also, the ads become targetable here, and make sure you kill the ads quickly or they will cast Enrage. The boss of floor 50 is called Ogbanabali. Is it a spider? Is it a crab or termite? No one knows. Anyway, on pool, the boss will turn the ground into quicksand, and you will have to stand on the rocks to be safe. Throughout the fight, mechanics will force you to enter the quicksand, and you will need to ensure that you do not stay in it for too long, or you will sink and die. Okay, so after turning the ground into quicksand, the boss will cast a few AoEs that could force you to have to spend a little bit of time in the quicksand. Then, the boss will cast Sand Pit at a target, and it will disappear. If you're the player targeted by Sand Pit, you will have to move from rock to rock, because the boss will repeatedly appear in your spot and perform a point blank AoE. Other players may also need to keep moving from rock to avoid the targeted player's path. If you're the targeted player, don't try to skip rocks to avoid other players. You will drown and die. Afterwards, the boss will cast Windraiser. This is a countdown to a knockback. When the countdown reaches 1, enter the quicksand, and the quicksand will prevent the knockback from Windraiser. If you stay on a rock, you will get knocked out of the arena and receive moderate damage dot. The boss of floor 60 is Ancestral Melictender. It will cast Spine Shot with an animation of bending over with its head at the start of the fight. This is a non-telegraph front and back cone attack. Stand on its side to avoid this attack. And this will show a few times throughout the fight. The boss will then cast Branch Up, and 4 vertical lines of small and large cactus will drop onto the arena one line by one. The large cactus will launch an AoE that covers its own square, as well as all surrounding squares, which is a total of 9 squares. The small cactus will only launch an AoE on their own squares. Now there are mainly 2 ways to dodge this attack depending on how the cactus spawn, and also on whether you're positioned on the north or south edge. Generally, it's best to first find the big cactus of the first line, and then identify the 9 unsafe squares of this big cactus. Afterwards, position your way away from the big cactus of the first line. You should end up on either the 3rd or 4th dropped cactus line. If you're on the 4th line, you'll be dodging to the 2nd line after the 2nd line's big cactus goes off. If you move too quickly, you'll get hit. If you are on the 3rd line, you'll be dodging into the 1st line immediately after the 1st line goes off. The boss will then follow this up immediately with a Spine Shot, dodge accordingly and position yourself on the boss's sides. Then, the boss will cast 1 stone or 2 stone march. I'm not entirely sure if there's a 3 stone march, but basically the large and small cactus will spawn, and these cactus will rotate a number of squares based on the number in the cast name. To find your safe spot, we first look at where the center big cactus will end up. In this example, it's a 2 stone march, so the center big cactus will end up in this position, and we know a total of 9 squares are unsafe around this big cactus. So let's move. Now, to find the safe spot on the outer edge, we need to look for the safe spot that has 2 small cactus beside it. Now remember, after moving 2 squares, this safe spot needs to end up outside of the center big cactus explosion. So, in this example, this is the safe square, and here's our safe spot. Afterwards, the boss will cast Spinning Needles and do a frontal and back cone as it spins. Dodge accordingly. Okay, onto the floor 70 boss, named Forgiven Seal. It will first cast Sealer's Glower, a line AoE that spawns light orbs. Dodge this line AoE while keeping track of which light orbs spawn first, front to back or back to front. All light orbs in this fight will explode in a donut AoE. So we have to first move into the first light orb and move into the following light orbs as each one does a donut AoE. As you dodge the first row of light orbs, the boss will cast a second glow. Once again, keep track of the order and follow the light orbs as the donut AoEs go out. The boss will next cast Ardorous Eye, a donut AoE around itself. So move to the center and once again keep track of the spawn order of the orbs. So we dodge into these light orbs and go run around in a circle. As we dodge into the last light orb, the boss will cast Disorienting Groan, a knockback AoE. So move into the center after the last donut AoE. Afterwards, the boss will cast Octuple Swipe and perform conal cleaves in the front, back, left and right, randomly a total of 8 times. Memorize the order and dodge accordingly. If you have trouble memorizing the order, a relatively reliable trick is to constantly dodge into the direction right after the boss cleaves that direction. Okay, so on to the floor 80 boss, named Forgiven Profanity. First off, there are 2 non-telegraphed cleaves that need to be mentioned. So first, it's when the whiskers swing forward and glow white. This is a frontal 180 cleave. The second is the opposite, where the whiskers swing backward with a white glow. This is a backwards light cleave. These cleaves will always occur at the same time as 2 attacks, either Roaring Ring or Perilous Lair. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. On pull, the boss will first cast Roaring Ring, a donut AoE. This will happen at the same time as a front or back cleave, so find the glowing whiskers and adjust accordingly. Next, the boss will cast Stalking Static and spawn a number of lightning balls on the arena. Line AoEs will travel from the center lightning ball and spiral to the final lightning ball on the edge of the arena. The final lightning ball will explode in a large AoE, so dodge accordingly by positioning yourself on the other side of the arena. The boss will then cast Perilous Lair, a point blank AoE accompanied by a front or back cleave. Check the glowing whiskers to dodge appropriately. If you get hit, you will get a bleed. The next mechanic is Prowling Death. You will get one of 2 debuffs, either a pink and brown debuff or a purple debuff. If you have a pink and brown debuff, you will need to move as little as possible to dodge the next mechanic. If you move too much, the pink and brown debuff stack number will increase, and if it rises too high, you will instantly die. If you get the purple debuff, you need to get hit by the front or back cleave to resolve the debuff. Basically, you're trying to cancel the purple debuff with light. If you fail to resolve the purple debuff, you will die. So when the mechanic first starts, first check your debuff and then prepare yourself to move. The next mechanic is either Roaring Ring or Perilous Lair, along with a front or back cleave. Remember, Ring is donut, Lair is point blank AoE. If you have the pink and brown debuff, try to dodge this set of attack with minimal movement of your character. If you have the purple debuff, make sure you get hit by the light cleave while dodging the in or out. Then these mechanics will repeat. The floor 90 boss is named Malakoda. I like to think of him as Machoke with wings. So at the start, the boss will begin by casting Backhand, and one of its arms will glow. This is a 270-degree cleave over 3 quadrants. Simply stand behind the glowing arm to dodge this attack. Then the boss will spawn circles on the sides of the arena and cast either with Twin Winged Treachery or Four Hind Folly. These circles will shoot line AoEs across the arena. Twin Winged Treachery is a conal AoE shooting out left and right side of the boss. Four Hind Folly are conal AoEs shooting out front and back of the boss. The line AoEs will occur at the same time as either Twin Winged or Four Hind, so players need to dodge accordingly. I personally find a safe spot by first identifying whether the sides or front back is safe, and then move into that quadrant of the arena. Afterwards, I check the line AoEs from the circles on the sides of the arena. One square in that quadrant will always be safe. These 2 mechanics will repeat a second time. Then afterwards, the boss will cast Hot Iron and jump to one edge of the arena. AoEs will drop all over the arena, and you need to dodge these AoEs while running towards the edge of the arena where the boss is at. The boss will then perform a knockback, followed by 3 circles on the arena edge that shoot line AoEs. Dodge accordingly. Okay, so on to the floor 99 boss, which is pretty complicated to explain. The 99 boss is a combination of 2, Eminent Grief and Devoured Eater. Once you reach this point, you will unlock the ability to queue into just this boss for practice. Okay, so to start off, you will need to pick up either a light buff or a dark buff from one of the puddles on the ground. The dark buff will allow you to both damage and resist Devoured Eater. The light buff will allow you to both damage and resist Eminent Grief. If you have the wrong buff combined with the wrong target, you will do 0 damage. Remember, you want the opposite color. The best way to remember this is Eater equals Sin Eater, which equals light, so you need the dark debuff. Opposite, Grief equals dark times, and so you need light. Okay, so another point you need to keep track of is that the light and dark buff only last 2 minutes, and when it runs out it will petrify you, so it's best to refresh these buffs every once in a while during the fight. Another important point is you need to remember that Eminent Grief and Devoured Eater need to be killed at around the same time, so make sure your party has a good damage split and to swap between light and dark buff as needed during the fight to keep the HP of the 2 bosses balanced. Also, I recommend you to ensure that the enemy list is visible, because at certain moments in the fight you will need to identify whether Grief or Eater is casting a spell first, so modify your UI as required. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Devoured Eater will first cast Blade of the First Light, and Eminent Grief will simultaneously cast either Ball of Fire or Chains. Blade of First Light will either cleave the sides or cleave the center of the arena. To identify which it is, look at the Sin Eater lodge into the big boss's chest. It will have either a center blade or 2 blades to the side. Ball of Fire is a baited AoE on each player, and Chains is an applied debuff where the player needs to stop moving else suffer death. Okay, so here's the issue. One of Eminent Grief or Devoured Eater's cast will first finish casting, and that can potentially affect how you need to deal with these mechanics. And this is where the enemy list comes in, which allows us to easily track which cast bar is quicker. Now, in the case of Chain combined with sides or center cleave, the order won't matter. You simply need to quickly position yourself and freeze when Chains finish casting, which is either sides or center. Now, Ball of Fire is the more dangerous one. If it's a sides cleave, but Ball of Fire finishes casting first, you need to be careful. You need to move as the fire cast finishes to bait the fireballs, and then dodge out of it while remaining center. The best way to do this is to stack middle, to bait the fireballs, and then move forward or backwards in the center line. If your party is too spread out in the center line, it's possible that there will be no safe space to dodge into. If the cleave happens first, then simply move into an empty spot when Ball of Fire finishes casting after. Okay, next. The boss will cast Bounce of Sin. You will get sucked in and binded in the center of the arena. Following this, small circle AoEs that create spikes will spawn in a circle around you. You will need to identify where the final circle spawns and run out of the surrounding circular AoEs the moment the bind wears off. If you remain mid and get surrounded by the spawning spikes, you will take damage and receive a Fawn debuff. If you are slow to run out and get hit by the spawning spikes, you will get knocked off the arena. I recommend that you face your character in a direction where you need to run and hold your forward movement button so that your character will immediately run towards the escape gap when the bind wears off. Okay, next, the boss will cast Spine Lash, and the target marker will appear over a player. The player that receives this marker will need to bait a line AoE. When the marker disappears, the boss will shoot a line AoE that extends all the way to hit the back wall based on the targeted player's position. If the line AoE hits a window on the back wall, an ad will spawn. This ad will throw AoEs every once in a while during mechanics by the boss, and this can cause problems for your party. The great thing is that we can completely prevent this ad from spawning. To do this, the player with the marker needs to bait the line AoE on the brass colored line on the ground. If you do this, the line AO will not destroy any windows and no ad will spawn. Okay, so after Spine Lash, the boss will cast Abyssal Blaze. Abyssal Blaze places 2 sets of crystals onto the arena, which will turn into Exaflares later on. One set will spread east and west, while the other set will spread north and south. To identify which set is which, we need to look at what the boss does with its hands as it places the crystals. If the hands move up and down, vertically, the crystal it places down will be delayed Exaflares that spread vertically. If the hands move left and right, horizontally, the crystals placed down will be delayed Exaflares that spread horizontally. Okay, so the way to find the safe spot is to position yourself on the left or right side of the arena away from the vertical crystals. And next, find the empty horizontal row above or below the set of crystals that will have horizontal Exaflares. That corner will be the safe corner. Next, both bosses will cast Strain Ether, with one cast being quicker than the other. Here is once again where the enemy list is relevant. You must ensure that you have the right light or dark debuff. Remember, you need to have the opposite buff. If you have the wrong buff, you will lose most of your health, with the boss getting healed. So here, in your safe corner, try to position yourself between one light and one dark puddle. Then, look at your enemy list to identify whether Eminent Grief or Defiled Eater has the faster Drain Ether cast. Then, pick the opposite buff of the faster cast before quickly swapping to the other color for the second Drain Ether cast. Okay, afterwards, the crystals will then transform into Exaflares. Since you should have already positioned yourself in a safe corner, simply hug the corner to stay safe. Once the Exaflares resolve, remember to switch your light or dark debuff as needed so you can keep damaging your assigned target and keep the health of the 2 bosses balanced. Okay, next, another Balance of Sin will be casted, dodge accordingly, then a Blade of Light with either Ball of Fire or Chains. Then a second Abyssal Blaze will be casted again, dropping the crystals of delayed Exaflares onto the arena. Once again, make sure you identify and remember which one is horizontal, which one is vertical, so that you know where the safe corner is. Okay, this second Abyssal Blaze is a bit different in that quite a few mechanics will occur before the Exaflares go off. So first, a Spine Lash will go off the baited line AoE that hits the back wall. Remember to bait it on the brass line to avoid spawning an ad. This is followed by Balance of Sin, then a Blade of First Light in combination with Ball of Fire or Chains. Afterwards, make sure you move to the safe corner because you will not have time to move later. Position yourself between a light and dark puddle in that safe corner, and the 2 bosses will now cast Drain Ether again. Identify which of the 2 bosses has a faster cast time based on your enemy list, pick up the right buff before swapping to the other color for the second Drain Ether cast. Finally, the stored Exaflares will go off, and if you've pre-positioned properly earlier, you should be able to just quickly stand in your safe corner and dodge these Exaflares. At this point, the mechanics will repeat. Okay, so thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'm pretty new to content creation, but I hope that the information I provided here today was helpful. So I hope everyone will have fun in the new Deep Dungeon and enjoy patch 7.35.